If you're new to stitch braids, this method is going to help you out so much. Let's go. Okay, so as always, starting on a freshly washed, conditioned, and stretched out hair, I'm going right in with my braid and lock gel. Now, small disclaimer, I will tell you guys, I've only done stitch braids like 2 times before this, but if I had known this method, if I knew this method from the beginning, it would have made it a lot easier for me. So this is really the only way that I can get my stitch braids to look nice. As I get better at them, I'm sure I won't have to use this method. I can do a more simple method, but this is the only way that I can get my stitch braids to look nice. And in this day and age, like, the stitch braids are really popular right now. So I feel like when you do just normal braids that don't have those stitches, it kind of looks aged. It doesn't look as contemporary. So I really wanted to learn these so that I can incorporate these in my styles whenever I do cornrows. So you're gonna separate that front piece, right? And this piece right here is going to be the only piece that you're going to braid more than once on each side. You're going to braid it like maybe twice on each side just to get it going, get that braid pattern going. And then if you notice, I pushed the rest of the hair back. That is a key to ensuring that you don't grab too much hair. So you see that hair is pushed back, and then I'm just going to go in with my rat tail and part out just enough hair for my next stitch and push the rest of the hair back. I am so bad at grabbing too much hair when I'm doing these stitch braids. It is next to impossible for me to grab the appropriate amount of hair. So this method really helps me to not grab so much hair. So as you see, I am only doing that braid pattern. I'm only braiding once on each side. And once I return to my first side, that's when I'm adding my stitches. So I'm only doing the stitches in my right hand. So I never add the stitches when the hair is in my left hand. So right here, I am going in and I'm parting my hair out, and then I just grab the appropriate amount of hair. Now, another good tip when you're let me show you. Wait, I'm gonna wait until I get to the part. So right here where you're putting your index finger through the new section of hair, you want to try to make sure, or you want to make sure that you're putting it as close to the middle as possible. So like, you want to push your finger through the middle of that new section of hair, if that makes sense. So this is that section that I'm talking about. You're getting a new section of hair, and you don't want it to all go to one piece of that of your hair, or it's going to get imbalanced and your braid is going to start to turn. You want to make sure you balance it out and put your index finger right through the middle of that section of hair, or as close as possible. You just really want to avoid having all of that new section of hair going to one of your pieces, if that makes sense, because like I said, your braid sections just get uneven, and then that's when you start to run into issues. And when you're doing these braids, make sure you're taking your time. If you're new to stitch braiding, then you're really going to have to spend a lot of time trying to perfect the technique. Your hands don't have that muscle memory, and you're not used to the technique. So you really have to slow it down. Don't rush, because you're really going to be kicking yourself if you speed through this and you don't get the results that you want. So honestly, you can get really nice results if you just slow down and take your time. So I want to point out that when I get to the end of this braid right here, I had a portion that was like the end. I'm sure you've done this before if you're not really good at French braiding, but you get to the end and you don't braid the back as tight as possible, and then you have the roots kind of like lifting up in the back. So you're going to notice I'm going to go back and redo the end of this braid because it's lifting up towards the back of this braid, and we don't want that. You see that? You want it to be flush to your head. You want it to be flush to your scalp. You don't want your braids moving. So I went back and I redid the end of that braid. And honestly, that's just what you have to do when you're not very good at a certain type of hairstyle. And I'm just doing some twists in the back of these, and then I'm going to eventually bantu knot the twist. I want to show you guys one more braid, and another good metric to see if you're doing it properly. Your braids should not move. You see how tight those are? They shouldn't move, and they shouldn't feel squishy. They should feel hard. So So that is how you know you are doing the braids properly, if your braids are nice and hard. All right, so we're gonna do one more braid. I just wanted to show you guys 2 braids so that if you needed a little bit more, I know I'm a visual learner, so just for my visual learners out there, I'm just giving you a little bit more footage so that you guys can really grasp this technique. So we're starting out with our front piece. You braid that a couple times on each side, and then you go in and you start doing your stitches. And you want these stitches to be really close together, so keep those parts nice and small. And then you push back the bulk of the hair so that you're not grabbing too much hair. Put your index finger right through the middle of that new section and keep it even. And then you just tighten up as you go. Now that is very important. I think that's one of the things that can cause your braids to be all squishy and not flush to your scalp, is when you don't tighten at each pass. So every time I complete the braid pattern on one side, I make sure that I'm pulling my hair nice and tight. So you're gonna see right here, I'm pulling tight. I put my index finger through the middle of this section, and now I'm gonna pull that apart and then tighten again, and then put my ring finger, when I go to do my stitch, I'm gonna put my ring finger on the section to kind of keep it stable. And that also helps me to feel to make sure that I'm putting my braid right in the middle of the section. You don't want your braids going off to the right or going off to the left. You want to make sure that your braids are going straight down the middle of the section. So now we're moving on to just doing some some twists in the back. We're doing 2-strand twists, and because these 2-strand twists are bigger, you want to make sure that you're using that braid and lock gel on the roots so that the roots look nice and flat and everything looks really neat. The larger the braids are, the more careful, oh my goodness, you need to be about your parts as well as your roots. So that's gonna make a big difference when you're doing those larger twists. On the length of my hair, I'm using my conditioning curl cream. It's a nice rich formula that's not going to wet up your hair so much that your twists completely revert, but it's going to really nourish and moisturize your hair. And like I said, it's a very rich, thick formula. So this is probably one of my favorite. This is my favorite thing to put on my hair right after a wash. And if you want to purchase any of my products, I'm sure you can see them tagged in the video. They are tagged, but you can also just go directly to my website, kellyloganhair.com. All of my products are formulated by me. They're tested on myself as well as my daughters. And we all have different hair types. So it works across a broad spectrum of hair types, and it's formulated just for curls, kinks, and coils. So now this was I think the next day. I just wore it in a ponytail in the back, and I had a claw clip in there, but I wanted to switch it up and do some bantu knots. I really love bantu knots, and I wanted to try out some bantu knots. So I'm sure we all know how to do Bantu knots by now. You kind of just take a section and you twist them until they start raveling up. Once they start raveling up, you just put the end, which is the thinner piece, you wrap it around the base of the knot to kind of get it to not move. I actually ended up having to put rubber bands on these just because the twists are so large, and I wanted to make sure they were secure. But that is it for this style, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in the next one.